I'm going to call this Fire Station Building Committee meeting to order. Before we start, I'd like to say that John is here with us tonight as a member of the Financial Planning Committee, and he won't be voting on anything, although I'm not going to participate in any votes tonight anyway. But he will not vote if we do have to take votes. But we welcome him. We're glad to have him and all his input.
Thank you.
So, we have the approval of the minutes from the August 28, 2024 meeting, November 20th, 2024 meeting. I hear a motion. We don't have the minutes in front of us, but you did receive them.
I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next, we have presentation and discussion on sub and general contractors bid submission. So Todd, if you want to start us off.
We have, at the very least, we have the bid tabulation summary, which are the general contractor bids that were submitted, what, I guess it was a week ago?
21st, Friday.
21st is,
I'm just saying, 2
Yep.
o'clock.
yes,
I may have been watching it.
as of the 21st. So you can see the low bidder, and you can see the high bidder, obviously. The low bidders who we intend to award to in the upcoming weeks. There is a bid savings based on these numbers. I do know that Tim had a conversation with HV Collins this afternoon, about their bid. They are still reviewing to make sure that they are comfortable with it, but for all signs seem to be that they are comfortable with their number and will be moving forward. If there's something that comes up, we'll certainly make you aware of it, but based on that conversation, it sounds like they're comfortable with where they stand.
Yeah, I believe Tim said that they left some money on the table, but they're okay with that.
Correct, yep. Which happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could you speak to anyone as to, because I know the question's going to come, well, how come it's so much lower than we anticipated? So I'd like at least to get that to the citizens so they know what's going on.
And maybe we should say how much lower.
6.469762.
Yeah, just about 6.5 million.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it looks like, based on their DCAM evaluation and the paperwork that they submitted with their bid package, that HV Collins went aggressively after this project. They are wrapping up quite a few projects and likely don't have a lot on their books going into 25 and part of 26. So with that being part of their history, they asked a lot of questions throughout the bidding process. So it looks like, based on the paperwork, that they went after it pretty aggressively. I'm sure they wanted a nice local project. Everything seems to be very detailed, so there weren't a lot of, I guess we'll say, a lot of things left out there for them to have to guess at, it appears. So.
Amy and Janet, didn't you say they were the #1 questionnaire?
They did. They asked more questions than anyone else.
Which to me is good, because that means that they were probing into it to say, let's make sure we're bidding this properly. So we're not making mistakes. So that was really good. There was some question about, not question, but some discussion about, there's a concern that construction may start to drop off a little bit, and a lot of these contractors are trying to get work under their belt, right?
Yes. So the number that we've been using as a budget was based on the professional estimates that we did as part of our design team, and then we had an independent estimate. The two of them reconciled their numbers, and they were in agreement at the time, but you have to remember that those estimates were done at about 50% CDs, which was, last summer, and that was done, the timing was based on going to town meeting and making sure that you had a good number to get to town meeting. At that point in time, there was a lot of uncertainty in the market. We were heading into the election. People didn't really know what was going to happen in terms of work. And so, the two estimators had the same opinion about where the market was heading, but what we're seeing is a little bit different. We're seeing some of the private work tapering off. We've heard that a lot of filed sub-bid trade numbers are coming in low because the sub-bidders don't have as much work as they would like to have. And we're hearing a lot of private jobs are not out there, so a lot of people are bidding the public jobs. So I think that's why you see the bids overall lower than the estimate numbers, but, the numbers are also very close. The low bidder was low by a bit, but then you see the numbers really clumped together and really close, which shows that they were all bidding the same project. They all understood the documents the same way.
And we spoke earlier today, you talked about the estimators and how they try to come in the middle. Can you explain, because I thought that was, I hadn't heard that before, it kind of makes sense, but could you elaborate on that a little bit?
They do. So the cost estimators don't want to give you a low bid. They want, because that wouldn't be fair to you for budgeting. You really need to sort of see the estimate at the middle of the pack, sort of get a sense of right where the mid-range of the bids would be. And so that's what they shoot for. So, if you look at the bids that we had here, we had, 6 bidders? And, the 5th bidder was right on target, very, very close to what the cost estimates were. So the cost estimators were right where they would want to be. You wouldn't want them to bid low and then have the bids come in high.
Okay. The other question I had, and I know Mitch and I were talking about this a little bit, was the HVAC and electrical. They came in much lower than we thought, and that was, immediately we were like, is that right? How did they come in so much lower? Was there the same justification, you think?
I think so.
Did, Todd, do you know if Tim reached out to either one of them? And I don't know if that's something you would do. Do you reach out to subs?
No.
Okay.
They don't have to select the low bidder. In the filed sub bid category, they can choose any of the people they want. They usually do pick the low bidder unless they have a personality conflict with them. But we had heard from our estimator the last 2 months, the numbers have been dropping. So that is not, in the filed sub bid world, and certainly in the GC world. He said that that's what they've been seeing. So, people are uncertain, backload, they don't know what's going to happen. We still don't know what's going to happen in the next 6 months or a year. So, same thing for the filed sub bids.
Yeah, and the bidders, both the filed sub-bidders and the general bidders, do have an opportunity to look at their numbers, just as Todd was saying. They can't back out unless they've made a clerical error, if they made a mistake in their bid. But the filed sub-bidders have had the time to look at their numbers now. They know what other people have bid in those categories. We haven't heard from any of them that they have concerns with their bids and that they made a mistake or anything, so.
Yeah, another clarification, and I hope you guys don't mind, I'm just trying to, these are things that came up to me when I was reading them, and if I had the questions, and I've been in as deep as I've been, I'm sure everyone else has these questions as well. One of the questions that came up, so the subs came in 2 million under, the GC comes in 6 million under, does that mean it's 8 million? And I know it's not, but if you could just clarify how that got there, because when I first looked at it, I went, oh, look at that, that's a nice number.
So Massachusetts public bid has these categories of work, the filed sub-bids, that there's certain very specific categories that you have to bid out separately, and the filed sub-bid bids come in first. And as Janet said, the general contractors have to choose which of those filed sub-bidders they want to carry in each category. They don't have to take the low bidder, but they usually do try to take the low bidder, because ultimately the general contractors are trying to get the lowest bid that they possibly can so that they can win the job. So, yeah, it's a sort of an interesting system that we have. But to your point, the general contractors have wrapped that savings into their bids, because they've incorporated the filed sub-bidders' numbers into their overall bid number.
Okay. And I only have one last question before I pass on to anyone else, and that's, I sigh heavy because I'm going to say the words MassDOT, which makes me sigh heavy. The driveway issue seems to be gone, at least from the last thing we got from them. So whether or not they wanted it, what they wanted was the furthest east driveway to be either only in or only out. And myself, the deputy, we wrote up this nice thing and sent it to them and said, it's not practical, this is why we designed it. And they said, okay. So I think we're okay with that, but now we're still dealing with this stormwater issue. And I think we've got an answer to it, because the big thing that happened, and just, this just happened recently, so I want to make sure you're all aware of this, is Mass DOT came back and said, okay, we see that you've tried everything to go not in our system, and you can't avoid it. You have to go into our, is that correct, the way I'm stating this?
Close enough.
Right? But now, we want you to go into this outlet instead of this outlet, right? And we want you to go into the westernmost manhole instead of the easternmost manhole, which now is going to just draw or force a new design. So we have to deal with that, and we're still working. I'm just trying to make sure I got that right.
That's close enough, yeah, they had, their comments before the last set of comments was, if we allow you to go in.
Yes.
And then this time was a turnaround where, essentially saying, they didn't write you can go, but, as the chief said, they kind of acknowledged that, there was nothing else to do with this water. So they were going to agree to review a new process, a new location.
Yep.
How dramatic of a change is the drainage redesign, or whatever you would want to call it?
There will be redesign, there'll be a new survey that has to be done to connect the dots. There'll be, there's some survey that picks up some of it, but they'll have to finish that out. They're gonna have to, uncertain yet, they'll have to go back and get their stormwater reports redone. They're sort of working through all that. They had already, PAR had already anticipated that it was going to go that way, so they had
Interesting.
already kind of shifted some drainage towards it because they figured that's where it was going to go.
Is that like a 200-foot shift from eastern to the western?
It's the most extreme point this way to the extreme point that way.
But it's all the same system.
Yes.
We don't have a condition where there's a peak and one goes this way and
No,
goes, it's all
no,
going
I don't think
to
so.
the,
It's all going out to the.
to Cold
Yeah,
Harbor
it's all
Brook.
eventually getting to the same spot,
Correct.
but
Yeah.
coming into it from two different points. They're eventually going to the brook,
Hmm.
but one was going down the street, around the corner, down the bend, and now we're gonna try to make it a more.
Straight shot, and it had to do with the size of the piping, and it had to do with all
Yeah,
I
the
mean,
pipe's not big enough, so
I gotta
that's.
tell you guys, I know more about building a drainage system now than I ever thought I would, and
They have to
I don't know much about it,
They
so.
probably have to, I think they will have to daylight the water, at the end of the site, things like that, so, so there's engineering that has to be done, and.
Will any of that engineering and redesign of the drainage impact any of the other systems? Because I know it's a complicated site.
Oh, fair question.
Underground.
Yeah, I'm hoping not. I mean,
Okay.
we talked to
I'm
them
hoping
briefly about, will it affect the landscape, would it affect the, and they didn't think so. It's
Okay.
so minor, but the catch basin that they have to daylight, or the water structure that they have to daylight is a different size and a different location, but.
So that's one that I found interesting. They have to daylight it, and I'm like, well, what the heck does that mean? Well, they have to have a basin that actually is open and so they'll be somewhere in the western section in the front of
We'll call it
the,
the Dunkin' Donuts.
yeah, where it'll be a grate, but, so.
You'll be able to look into it, you should be able to see water or not see water, whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Is this for nitrogen or some other, they need to vent that chemical?
yeah, I don't think so.
What's
This is
going
all
on?
about
I think it's
the
evaporation.
water that going into the systems and how it goes, and we have to look at the water upstream and downstream of this, as opposed to like redesigning the entire system from one end of the town to the other. I don't think we wanted that. So it's still a work in progress, and it's still, but I think MassDOT is
Madam Chair, question to
coming along.
Janet.
Yeah.
Does this have to go past the planning board again, or the conservation commission?
Might have to go to the conservation.
Doesn't need to go in front of planning, it will need Concom.
Yeah, only Concom.
Yeah.
And they're going to, I think Vinnie's going to look at it and say, are we changing stuff enough that it needs that review or not?
Right, so it
Until they
will,
know.
we'll touch base with them, and
Okay.
they'll say, yes, you have to come in front of us, no, you don't.
Okay.
So we have a lot of unknowns at this point because they haven't done any work yet. So
And what does this do, if anything, to the timeline?
if it does anything to our timeline. I mean, MassDOT's on their own world.
Yep.
They do things when they.
Amy and Janet were telling me a story about a place they were working on where they were just finishing up the project when MassDOT finally approved it.
Yeah.
So, there you go.
Okay. All right.
Year plus a construction, and then, oh, we're ready.
Now,
I mean,
now, there are some changes, so we're not looking at breaking ground in April, we're looking at breaking ground in May now. Mainly because we've had to push this out because there was several addendums, as you
Yep.
guys saw, right? So, which pushed out the opening, which pushed out everything, so we're looking somewhere in May for the official
You
groundbreaking.
guys got to do contract work,
Yeah.
the legal piece of it.
Yes.
So I think there'll be, Amy and I have been discussing whether they'll slam us with, they got to build the wall, the retaining wall first, which is going to take months, so what will they do in between? That's means and methods, we're not involved in that at all, but that's what's going to happen first, so.
So the next steps, as you said, we have to do a contract, so is that will come from Colliers through Scott and myself and anyone else on the committee who wants to look at it?
Yeah.
And then, right, and then to our council? Do I have that direction right? Okay. We also need, I think, an updated money flow. So when so Jason, I know when I had talked to,
Yeah.
I had talked to Todd, not you, I talked to Tim about it a little bit, about updating that. So we need you guys to reach out again to Jason and myself, and just so we can coordinate and see what that is.
Yeah, and that's, the current plan for that, and hopefully as it hasn't changed, is for the select board to actually sign the first bond the night of town meeting.
I don't think anything's changed on that.
Right, yeah, so some amount of the cash flow needs to get sorted out per the same timeline that you've already been discussing with Jason, and work with him on that.
You included a contract in the specifications.
We did,
Which is good, so there's not like, oh, we have never seen this.
And that contract had been vetted by
Yes,
council already.
it includes the bid and the supplemental, so you guys have hopefully thought that all out and can negotiate that relatively quickly. They'll want to get started, you know, they don't want to sit on this either. They want to take advantage of the better weather to build this wall and put foundations in, you know, so.
When do the geothermal wells get drilled?
I don't know, it's up to them.
I would think in a critical path, you know, you've got to
You can go in.
use
they
the
can
site
go in.
as clean as you can to do that, well, you're not bumping into other things, right?
Yeah, it's really up to the contractor to propose.
Yeah.
It will be before it freezes, though.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, I've had projects, they've done the geothermal wells at the end.
Yeah.
You know, they wait till it's all done and then they put them in and connect everything. So it's not necessarily, they gotta get all the grading, you know, there's a lot to be done to get them. So they're not, I don't think it's gonna happen too early.
Yeah.
We did get a right to entry signed with the owners of Hillside. They were more than happy. I said, yeah, just give it to me. I said, no, you gotta read it. No, just give it to me. They're awesome. If you guys haven't dealt with them, they are awesome
I
people.
had lunch there today,
Yeah, they are awesome. Yeah, just give it to me. Oh, there you go. And then my phone rang. Hey, can you come over and look at my fire alarm? I'll be there in a second, John. Hang on. You know, so great people to deal with. But that's all signed as well, so that's good. That was something we just had to get, and that went through council as well, so. Am I missing anything? Oh, so I know there's been some talk about this 6.5 and what happens to it, right? The savings. And I know Mitch had some ideas, and so I'm not quite sure. So it stays, the idea is it would stay in the contract until the end of the build, correct? Am I
And it
correct?
stays in the project budget.
Yeah, the
Not
project.
not the contract, but the project
Well, that's what I
budget, yeah.
meant, in the budget. And then at the end, we have extra, then great, it gets turned back in, or we do whatever.
Yeah.
Sort of like how we use Lincoln Street for this
Yep.
project.
Yeah, so ultimately, once this project is concluded, the select board and town meeting will make a decision as to what to do with, it won't be extra money, it will be extra appropriation, because the plan is to borrow a significant portion of the expected cost of the project, but not the whole thing at the beginning. And then as the project is winding down, and you can say, this is exactly what it will be left, you borrow the difference. And that total, at this point, looks like it's probably going to be around $6.5 million less, maybe even a little bit better if we do really well with our contingencies, you know, than we originally anticipated. But the town meeting has appropriated some money. So some towns will, at the end of that whole process, will rescind the difference. They'll do an amendment to the original number and bring the number down, and then it goes completely off of every sheet imaginable. Some towns, I think Northborough historically at least, has left it there so that you could then use that appropriation somewhere else for some future similar project. So as the chief
Keith
mentioned.
is a great example.
Yeah, so as the chief mentioned, Lincoln Street, you know, was, I don't know, $1.5 million, $2 million, whatever it was, under budget at the end of that project. We didn't have any money as part of that, but we had the extra appropriation that stayed on the books, and then that helped us buy the land for this project, because it's a similar project, a building project. So what will happen, we'll figure that out in 2 years. But it's not going to be, we won't have to borrow for that 6.5 million, so we will not have to have taxpayers pay for that 6.5 million. And that's really the important part.
It's exciting.
Yeah. So I've seen, then the question is, okay, where do you allocate that within your budget? I've seen it done 2 different ways. I've seen it done where it goes into owner's contingency, and our owner's contingency goes from roughly $2 million to roughly 8.5. I don't love that idea because it looks like you have $8.5 million to spend when the intent is to not spend it. So my preference would be to create a line, something like bid savings, and put the money in there. So we have to allocate, we have to keep track of it anyway, even though we're never going to touch it. But as a way of reminding us, it's not our money to spend.
Jason has several projects with those outstanding, let me call them stubs, that he's kept track of.
Yeah, okay, great.
What? Yeah.
Do we have like an estimate of when substantial completion would be?
And that's,
When do we think substantial completion might be?
October 26th.
Okay.
That sounds right.
We had to,
No, you're coming.
I'll have to fly back because
You can stay.
I'm going house hunting in May, my friends.
When's your retirement date? No.
April 8th, 2026, probably.
Can be extended.
The expectation at the beginning of building this size is like a 14-month construction period, 14 to 15 months. But with the wall, a couple
Right,
extra months
the
was
wall.
added.
Oh,
And so that sort of pushed it, which means everybody's going to be stretched out, all the consultants, us, everybody, that additional 3 months of time, because we don't know how the contractor's going to approach it, how they're going to do the shops, and how they're going to do, whatever's. We'll have to wait and see, but October, yeah, early in October, I think.
We need some design jargon name for the wall.
Think Pink Floyd.
I was just going to say, what I'm going to do is
You like that?
when they
No?
click onto the project page on the website, I'll just start playing Pink Floyd The Wall, so it'll be terrific.
What should we call it?
Anything else?
I don't remember if I had anything else.
Do we have to vote on anything regarding the bids?
Do you have to vote?
By mass state law, it's low bid.
Yeah.
Correct.
Unless anybody has any conversation why it shouldn't be.
Oh, gosh, no.
I would ask, and Diana, I hope you don't mind if I'm going to put you on the spot. You had said you've worked with these people before,
I have.
and you had very good luck with them?
They were great. We've done 2 pretty large projects with them. It's been several years, but they're well-respected firm, and they do a lot of public work. They're Rhode Island-based, but they do work in Rhode Island and Massachusetts.
I'm not going to, we were joking about it being Rhode Island-based, but I won't go down that road. Anyway.
There are a lot of good companies that are based in Rhode Island.
Do either of your companies have experience working with HV Collins?
HKT has not, to
No,
my
our
knowledge. I
consultant,
did.
one of our
Yeah, one of our consultants said that they had worked with them and had good experience. They
Okay.
had done some CM jobs, some design bid build, and some design build with them, and had good experiences and all.
Colliers?
We did, it was a smaller project, it was about 10 years ago, but it was a positive experience. There was
Nothing negative.
nothing negative, right.
Yeah, great. Yeah, no, I've never worked with them, but I've heard very positive things from their reputation.
I can tell you, after 2 PM on Friday, I started looking.
Yeah.
And you start Googling and you're looking for reviews or bad reviews or what, and I couldn't find anything. So that's good stuff. I'm sure there's something, everyone doesn't like somebody or whatever, but overall.
Of course. Personnel
Well,
change.
if you remember their history of projects, they do a lot at Hanscom, and you can't get to
That's
keep
where we
working
were.
there if,
This is true.
If you
Doing
get
bad
a bad
work,
rep, yeah. Just an observation, if you take the 4 top low bids, average them out, it's 4.5 million under. So for the top bidder to be greater than that, I mean, that touches the skew. They want the business.
I agree. I agree.
Anyone else?
I have a comment, if I may. I know he's not part of our team officially, but he kind of is, and that's Scott Charpentier. And I just need to take a second and give Scott a shout out, because he has been and I know he's not here, and I don't care if he hears this, but he's been an incredible, I think you need to hear it, and so does other members of this group, an incredible support to me. And when something comes in, I go, I don't know what this means. Scott, yeah, just send it over. And within a short period of time, he gets something back. This is what it means, chief. Oh, thank you, okay? And he's just been such an incredible, it makes my job, at least of the communications, much easier. So I just wanted to make sure I took a second and made sure you guys realize, although he's not sitting here with us all the time, he is an amazing resource and has been just terrific for us. So I just wanted to make sure everyone knew about that.
From the
Yeah.
beginning.
Yeah, it's critical that everyone, sometimes it's those people that you don't see. We're here all the time for the meetings, but it's the people that are in the back. It's like my deputy's been incredible. Neil's done a boatload of work for this, but you don't see him all the time.
Yeah, that's why, when you mentioned that the drainage is the only problem right now, I have no concerns, because we've got a DPW director that knows that stuff inside and out and can help us understand everything. Obviously, you have people that know that, but it's helpful for the town side to have that as
He
well.
was at all the meetings with MassDOT, so
Yeah.
with us. There's a small group of us that was all at every one of those meetings, but he was there. So very helpful. Good questions.
Madam Chair, one question. So furnishings, the soft stuff is inclusive or exclusive of this GC number?
Inclusive.
Inclusive.
Exclusive. Furniture,
in
fixtures,
here, isn't
equipment is not part of
I thought
this.
it was in there. No. Oh, no, it's separate, because we were talking about that today.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Yes,
Yep.
yes.
Yeah, we have a separate budget line. item
And
for
fees
that.
and
It's
expenses.
separate, fees and expenses,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a separate line, but I was thinking of the total number. It's
Yeah,
exclusive
no,
to the total number.
that's what I thought.
Yes, it's exclusive of the
Turn
GC.
it over and shake it.
And I think janitor Amy said that, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I thought so,
that's a
thank
good
you.
Yeah, well, in fact, we were just talking about that, and in fact, I was talking with them today, and we talked about, well, this is what that was, and Tim, you walked in at just a perfect time. So remember how we were going through the numbers today and saying, well, this is what we estimated this at, but it could end up being a little bit higher, this could be a little bit lower, so we went, because we didn't know some things, and FF&E was one of those things, well, this is what we estimated it at, but it could be a little bit higher, depending on what happens.
Yeah, I would say we took a conservative approach. We're trying to fit in other things. Depending upon where you go with the project, during the project, excuse me, you can use contingency to supplement. So that's what we were thinking when we were developing the budget. Excuse me.
You okay?
You want to
It's like
water?
climbing the stairs. So that's kind of the thought process, is that some of those things that we could do later, or make those decisions later. Thank you. So FF&E is one of those items.
Furniture's not cheap, but, I think we gave them an idea based on our last 2 fire stations.
Yeah, one of the things we were going to do is have some of our guys get together from the fire department and start looking and seeing what's out there and be able to provide us with some direction of, this is what we think will work well for us, that type of stuff.
Yeah, because,
Well, I was going to say technology too is one of those items of the part of FF&E that it just changes so much, and depending on what the needs are, we can get a basic system to do what we need to do for presentations and that sort of thing. But really what's right to put in there, and really what's looking at the bigger picture, what that room is going to be used for, that can vary quite a bit, so.
I assume you'll work with our town's municipal IT staff when it comes to the technology, to make sure that we put in things that are, will properly integrate with what we have elsewhere.
David's already been in on many of the meetings, all the
Yeah.
meetings.
Yeah, security, same thing.
So you weren't here, but we're going to bring it back up again anyway. Remember we talked about that 6.5 and where it goes? You and I were talking about that today, and Mitch was saying, yeah, he's got some concerns with it going into the contingency, but that a bid savings folder, or whatever you want to call it, line,
Yeah.
how's that line, right?
Yeah, am always worried that people will see and say, oh, you've got you take the roughly $2 million that we'll have in owner's contingency, add 6.5 to that, we've got $6.5 million slush fund. I don't want anyone to think that we do.
So we really want to
Yeah.
put that aside.
Yes,
I mean,
yeah.
we want to keep it in case something comes up and you
Yeah.
need it. You never want to have to go back and saying, hey, we need more
Oops.
funds. But whether it's just another line
Yeah.
item in the budget, whereas bid savings,
Yeah.
and it's there, and, all the lines within the budget, we're using our best estimates to fund those different line items. But sometimes you move money around if there's just some different fees and expenses that are a little bit different than what you expected. And so we're always going to be transferring money to different things when needed. Contingency is obviously, it's designed to cover the unknowns.
Yep.
The bid savings can just make an improvement, enhancement to the project, where when we're doing it, wasn't maybe something that we thought of during design, but said, hey, you know what? This came up as an operational issue, and wouldn't it be great to have this? And so maybe that's a piece of equipment, maybe that's something else. So to have that available if need be, and if we don't need it, it's the town's money to decide to where to put it afterwards.
Yep.
So if you had change orders, you have this additional buffer or is
Yes.
if you exhaust the contingency, then you have a buffer beyond that.
We never
Yeah,
wanted
you
it.
never,
Never have.
Theoretically.
Good, thank you.
But yes, theoretically, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. It's really there because town meeting appropriated a certain amount of money, so that's technically our entire project budget. But my expectation is that $6.5 million will just sit there and we'll never touch it. And then at the end of the project, we went through a couple of options on the town side we have to do with that. It won't be money, it will just be appropriation.
Yeah, for instance, during some of our school projects during COVID, obviously the air exchanges was a big thing, whether you do UV in the ventilation systems. So that was something that we had never planned for. We were able to cover those costs on the projects that decided to move forward with that out of contingency. But we did keep bid savings in the project in case we needed it. And in the end, we turned money back to the town. But it's something like that as an example of, it's nothing we thought about, it's an improvement to the project, and is the value dollars worth it, and do we have it, and that way it kind of makes that contingency go a little bit further if something comes up.
John?
Madam Chair, question for Colliers. Under the electrical sub-bids, is the transfer switches and all the switch gear included in that number? Is that labor and materials?
Yes.
It is, okay, thank you.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything broken out. The only thing with electrical is you have subs, certain filed sub-bidders. A filed sub-bidder is supposed to do all their work. They're not supposed to sub any of it out to anybody else.
Right.
Except for certain trades like electrical, where they'll sub out some of their low voltage, like security or telecommunications, some of those types of things. HVAC, it's the controls that get subbed out, or maybe insulation of the systems. Those are separate numbers, but they're included within there, so
Yes.
all that is included within the electrical filed sub bid.
Good.
And it's soup to nuts, it should be
So
everything.
I'm thinking the transfer switch and the lead time to get that, and that's not a cheap piece of
Emergency
equipment.
generators,
Yep.
the switch gears are
Long,
a year.
at least a year.
Yeah,
I mean, I have a project where we did a lot of the work last year, and this year, we're doing all that stuff. We can't even, they anticipated it at multi-year because of that, so.
okay, thank you.
way more than-
Yeah, so with that in mind, I assume the electrician will be on it immediately to start ordering.
Would hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something that we'll push, certainly. There's some calculations that they'll need to do, their load calculations and submittals, and so it does take a little bit of time. They can't just order it right away, but we'll try and get that submittal process going, and then they can get to a point where they can release the equipment, at least get in line for the manufacturing, because it is a year lead time.
And a reminder, and I know I've told you guys this, and I'm going to tell you again just because it makes me feel better, we got to get the permit stuff into Bob.
Yes.
I'm just going to keep reminding you because I want to get it in there before things change and we have to say, oh, no. So so right now, they can go either way, right? They can use either set.
Yeah.
So we want to still use,
Yeah.
You could file for a foundation permit and lock yourself into the 9th edition if you don't have everything ready, but
We should be
Yeah.
fine to lock in the 9th edition, but,
just makes me feel good to say it.
Yeah.
yeah.
When's the cutoff date?
June 30th.
Oh,
June 30th, yeah.
oh, okay, so we hope to break ground before then, so we
We have
better
time,
be
it's
ready.
just something
Yeah.
that, yeah, it's a state, you
It
know,
was a big issue, and then it became
annulled.
Yeah.
sort of an issue, and then it went away until the summer, because of the feedback, I think.
I think it was because of the feedback, the pushback.
Yeah, pushback.
But the energy code is in effect
Yes.
as of February 14th, so
Yeah.
we have to conform. So are you doing a TEDI analysis?
Yep, a TEDI model was done early in design, and yep, we'll get them to update the final.
Okay.
My understanding by law is that we have to accept the lowest bid, but do we make it official by?
I don't think we need to do a vote. I don't think it's required.
It wouldn't have an impact on the legal process that you all are going through with the bids, correct?
No, we could
What do you guys
recommend to
recommend?
you to go with the low bidder. We've reviewed the bids, the bid tab that Todd talked about, that they all appear to have submitted all the proper documentation. All their bids are signed, they acknowledge the addenda, and the other miscellaneous things that they're required to do. We checked in with HV Collins to see if they felt comfortable with their bid and if they had any reason to put in a request to withdraw, and they indicated they felt pretty good with their number. So we don't see any reason not to recommend going with the low bidder. So we can recommend to this group, and if you wanted to take a vote to recommend that the town do that, I don't know if you need to.
I have a motion, I think, if that's okay. Can I try? So I would make a motion that we accept the bid tabulation form as submitted by Colliers, indicating HV Collins as the low bid, and we accept that as the low bid.
How about contingent upon recommendation from the OPM?
Yeah,
Just
We've
to-
already had.
That's who I said it was from, yeah.
Okay,
From them.
yeah.
Yeah, and we do, as part of the minutes here, I guess I would capture it, but we recommend going to contract with HV Collins.
Yep.
Great. So,
Chief made a motion.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? I just feel more comfortable.
No, that's fine.
Yep, that is right.
Good with that.
Okay, anything else?
don't
Okay,
think there's any-
public
is-
comment.
Oh, Dan.
If I may, over the last 7 years, I haven't really said a whole lot in these meetings,
You have it.
so I'm not sure how much longer we're going to be meeting, so I just want to say thank you to everybody in this room, both on the boards and then obviously the 7 years.
We've been together for a while.
Exactly. And also HKT and Colliers. Excellent partners. Feel very positive going forward.
Dan and I are having a discussion who's going to leave first, so.
That'll be me, sir.
Do you want to talk about going forward?
Yeah, sure,
When we go into construction and
Be great.
what we see as the process?
That'd be great.
We would see still meeting monthly, provide financial and schedule updates. Not getting into the weeds, but just keeping you abreast of what's going on, what kind of major issues we have, if any. And there'll be decisions to make about FF&E or other items. You know, we have to go through the procurement process for materials testing and some other firms to supplement the project. So we'll still want to get together and talk about those items.
So every 4 to 5 weeks?
Yeah, we could do it, we could kind of keep something on the calendar for monthly or something like that, and only meet if we need to, or meet every other month if there's really nothing major going on. If we were to do that, I would say that we have kind of a small group, if something comes up, to be able to take quick action, you know, whether it's through the chief, and the chief has authority up to a certain point to approve you know,
It's, so when you send me something, I send it out to these, it's a quick turnaround, they all get right back to me, so that's fine, if, you know, he'll send me something, I'll send it out to you guys, unless it's, I have to decide this second, which doesn't happen.
What I've done in the past, which has worked pretty well, is to set a dollar threshold for change orders, and below that, or, you know, change directives, if you will, that below that threshold, they could be approved by the OPM plus any one of a couple of, 2 or 3 different members of this committee. And then we would decide, we can vote on that at our next meeting, figure that out, what that threshold is.
Yeah.
But above that threshold would have to come to the committee.
and I think that works well, because the bigger they get, usually they're a little bit further out.
Yeah.
But if they're digging in the field and they say, hey, we came across some organic material, and it's right where we're gonna put our manhole, the machine's there, our guys are there, if you give us approval, we can dig it out right now. If you say we have to wait, then the guy's gotta come back, and it's
Yeah.
gonna cost more, and so it's good to have that flexibility for usually those are smaller dollar value items. And if there's something that's large, that we need to go back and forth and get a change proposal from the contractor and review it, and then usually we have time to schedule a full meeting to talk about those bigger items. But yeah, I think that works well.
Madam Chair, question for HK, for Colliers. Fear of the unknown. Potential increases in prices of commodities, copper, aluminum, steel, lumber. How does the GC mitigate that? What's the expectation?
Well, he's locked into a price, although when we were talking about this and before we went out to bid, we did review with town council, and they put some language in about we would at least review, if they put in a claim, we would review it, and they would have to provide documentation to justify that it was a tariff unknown, out of their control type of an issue.
Okay, all right, thank you.
But that was pretty specific to tariffs and not just other general price increases.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I imagine that they would have to demonstrate that even with the tariff, they were still buying it the least expensive way possible and provide all the paperwork in the world to back that up, and then we'd at least discuss it.
Exactly,
Yeah.
like, their bid, right now, tariffs aren't an unknown, they may not getting those price increases right
Yeah.
away. But the good thing is the steel is something that's a direct relation to a tariff versus something that has a lot of pieces and parts added value to it that makes this component that has steel in it or aluminum in it. That's harder, those prices will eventually work their way through the supply chain. But the structural steel number and them to be able to try and quantify it. There's going to be increases on all sorts of things. Hopefully that they can get their submittals in, get in the pipeline for with their subs and suppliers and lock in those prices. But I know that some companies just, hey, we're not locking in anything that's more than 30 days out. So we're going to have some volatility for a while, it looks like.
Okay, thank you.
So April's kind of a very busy month.
I was
meeting or whatever.
going to make a recommendation that we just put a pin in for the 4th Wednesday of each month, right? And if we can meet then, if we need to meet, then we can have it, but at least we can reserve the room, we can reserve whatever we had, and then we can, right?
We start in May, only because if we start in April, that's town meeting week.
It's the week
Okay.
before town meeting.
Well,
be-
they'll still be contracting then, probably, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we would, our next steps are really to start putting their name, HV Collins' name in the contract and putting their price in there and getting it, having it reviewed by the town and then send it off to the contractor and get them on board. I don't know that this group would necessarily need to meet for that.
So, we can make May 28th the date.
And that might be even after groundbreaking.
We have well.
It should be
two
after
things.
ground
We're gonna
breaking,
have
yeah.
2 more new proposals for you. One will be for the work on the Duncan pipe. It is what the chief asked for, a direct line to the site, and the other will be, we don't have a CA fee, so that
And we'll
was.
need something from Colliers too, for
Yeah,
the
so
same reason.
we
So we
gotta,
may need to meet.
we're gonna get that in the next week, or weeks or less, over to Colliers and that, and to review, and,
So,
So do we need something sooner than later?
Yeah,
yeah, that's my
Okay.
point, you're gonna
Yeah.
need something sooner.
Gotcha, so we should maybe think
So
of,
maybe we do need
The
a
9th?
full meeting.
Pardon me? Yeah.
is the 9th free?
April 9th.
yeah, I can do that.
April 9th?
6 o'clock?
Same time? Same bat time? Same bat
I
channel?
don't think I can,
I have a potential conflict, although they usually don't want me there, so I'm happy not to go.
9th or the 16th?
16th is fine.
Either one
That's
works for
fine
me.
with you?
the 16th I could do.
16th, you want to do 6? Is that okay with everybody? Is that too far out? Is that okay for you two? For you guys?
That's fine.
6 o'clock? That work for
Yeah.
everybody?
Okay.
I'm waiting to hear from Janet and Amy. They're over there.
The 16th at 6 o'clock? No?
I-
Or would you prefer the
I can
9th?
do the 16th. I definitely cannot do the 9th. I can do the 16th.
Yeah, if the timing is fine for the 16th, I think it sounds like it works for everybody.
Yeah, Janet hasn't said that yet.
Just get out, look.
And then beyond that, will we start looking at the fourth?
That's what I would start in May on the fourth Wednesday, which would be the 28th, I think.
And you'll let us know when the groundbreaking is going to be.
Yeah, we chatted about that a little bit today, but yeah, but we won't, everyone will have plenty of notice beforehand.
Great.
And Dan's going to be happy because he'll be back from Aruba. Sorry, he said we can't do the groundbreaking in April because I'm going to be in Aruba.
When are you going?
When are you going, Dan?
Let me just tell everyone. I'm not going to do that.
He's going later in the
That
month.
seems like a terrible idea.
I'm going away, people can come break in if they want to.
Dan, you can watch the video after you get back, you
You
know.
can tell them
Exactly.
after we stop broadcasting, you can tell them.
Just Photoshop me in.
So does that work, does 16th work?
I'm free,
Okay,
yeah.
16th at 6 o'clock here. I will make sure I'll do all the reserving and all that. No need to do a hybrid, we can still do it this way in person only. Everybody okay with that? Okay. Awesome.
Okay. So we have no public comment because we have no public. Any other business that legally can come before the committee? Adjournment?
Move to adjourn.
I second it.
All those in favor?
Awesome.
Thank you.